Hello once again, ladies and gents. Welcome to assignment number 4, the hue and saturation feature in GIMP. Before we get started, we need to open our original file. So if we locate on the O drive, the file you're looking for is saturation before. Once it's open, you'll see it's an image of a kingfisher in flight with a marsh and the Bay of Fundy here in the background. The hue and saturation feature is going to be the last feature that we look at in GIMP that deals specifically with color and how light or dark an image is. So what colors are present, how intense are they, and also how light or dark is the overall image. To access this feature, it's once again housed under colors, because that's the particular scenario we're interested in manipulating on this photo. We can select it, and we'll select hue and saturation. So here's what the hue and saturation window looks like. There's a whole bunch of features dealing with color and a couple slide bars that we've interacted with on previous assignments. They work in much the same fashion. Before I make any changes, just a brief description of why we'd want to change the color in this photo. You may have noticed in the background here and also in the foreground our colors are very muted. That is to say, they're not very bright and they look kind of dull. When this picture was taken, it was quite overcast. You can see the clouds in the background here. I didn't have a lot of sunlight, and a lot of the color detail gets lost when there's not enough light. These greens were much more vibrant. There was a whole host of yellow colors, and the kingfisher itself actually is a fairly spectacular shade of blue, which we don't really get the feeling of in this photo. So if you ever have any photos that are taken under non-optimal conditions, you don't have a lot of light, or it might have been quite hazy or dark out when you've taken the image, the hue and saturation tool is another feature that you can access to increase the overall attractiveness of your photos and portray the colors as you'd seen them. So to make our initial change, once again we're going to select colors, hue and saturation, and what I'm going to be playing with, this first one, is the saturation bar. Saturation actually means how much color is present in the image. If we take it all the way to the left, we'll see we remove all color, and the image actually becomes black or white, or what's sometimes referred to as grayscale, because we don't have any colors. So I'm going to play with the saturation tool until the image resembles what I had seen when I had originally taken this photo. And I like it right about where it is now. It's kingfisher, the blue is much more identifiable, and we're starting to get some of these nice yellows and greens back into the image, as well as some blues into our sky. Once we want to save our changes, we can press OK, and we're going to save this initial image as saturation after. It was saturation before, now it's saturation after, and we're going to save it to the appropriate spot in our U drive. The saturation effect can also be used in one of two fashions. We might use it to reproduce an image that was more similar to what we saw, was more true to life, or we might use the hue and saturation to create an image that is much more artistic and not necessarily real. If we were to take the saturation bar and now increase it all the way, it results in a pretty interesting image. However, when I was standing at the marsh, it certainly was not this much orange, and the sky wasn't this almost neon toxic blue. So saturation can be used to produce a more lifelike image. It can also be used to produce a more artistic image. And one way that we can access these features is to actually go in and select the primary colors that we want to increase or decrease. If you'll notice, I'll select red first to give you an idea of what happens when we adjust this primary color. But this image, if we look at it, doesn't really contain very much red. And when I decrease or increase the saturation for red alone, it doesn't really seem to affect any change. However, if I select the yellow feature, which I seem to have plenty of, the changes are quite noticeable. So for the final image, I'd like you to play around with this. You can select any color you like, or you can return it to master to change all colors at once. And I would like you to come up with an image that you think is interesting and unique. Once you have your saves, you can press OK, and you'll save this image as saturation